points on whatever.
Okay.
But it looks like it does like a panorama and the split screen.
This is the same thing we used for the comedy.
Exactly, but I didn't record that time. This time it looks like it's working. Miracles. Whew. Okay, I can put this down like that and just out of the way. Get this thing more down, flat. Okay, there we go. I'm Scott. Cave Rum this is the Eden.CoOp 4th branch media arm of the revolution with Jamie, Allie, Morse, and Topanga.
Hi, Scott.
Hi, Jamie.
I'm so happy to be here today. This is a very cozy, we're 2 days out from Christmas? So it feels like, this like festive pre-storm, just so everyone knows. Pre-storm energy, just so everyone knows what our vibe is. Right
and that is like end of Hanukkah, which symbolizes the end of like the light, the darkness of the light. New moon, solstice, Christmas coming up, big freaking storm to blow this town away.
Yeah.
Classic moments. You gonna be up at the house?
I am. Yeah. And I was actually I have these holiday plans. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do any of them. So maybe I'm just gonna host in, like neighborhood orphans,
What's the
Christmas
plan? Were you gonna host it?
We'll just see. I think on Christmas Day, I might end up just saying anyone that can make it is welcome to drop in.
We got the same thing. I got my in-laws and my daughter's gonna be in Santa Monica, and I know this is gonna be closed.
Yeah.
And that's why the Jeep or the 4x, so I can go the other way.
Okay, good. So you're gonna go with them on Christmas
Day?
Day?
I can.
That's right. If not, text me if you can come hang out. I just figured, I was like, I think we're not gonna be the only ones in these boats. Like, I think there's gonna be a bunch of people that are like, I'm supposed to go to Glendale tomorrow night, but like, let's see. Like,
yeah, exactly. And we're hosting a screening of Fanny and Alexander with some fun friends tonight. If you want to come by.
Okay, maybe
have you ever watched it?
I haven't.
It's Bergman, and it's like a cozy Christmas story. And you think Ingmar Bergman, it's going to get your head lost, and it's like the most intimate, beautiful Disney-like Christmas story, but with the depth and allegory, and it's autobiographical by Ingmar Bergman. The culmination of his career. It's the most beautiful, lush film ever.
Oh, amazing!
Yeah,
I love that.
Hopefully the projector works. It usually does, but so tonight 7ish. Do a little potlucky dinner if you want to come back.
Okay, that's so amazing. Thank you.
Good crew too. Really good crew. It'll be hard for us to stop talking. Actually,
I was just gonna say, I was like, it'll be like the movie will start at 8, like
exactly, or
8:30.
And then maybe go a little bit late.
I love it. It's perfect because it's like Chris. That's it. So I was like,
popcorn food, the whole deal.
Oh my God, so nice.
Yay.
I love it.
So this is like in the context of the project.
Yeah.
Interviewing everyone about themselves, their ikigai, their dreams, their thing.
Yeah.
Then, what are the main things in your life? How did you get here? What are the main things that you're expressing towards stuff that we talked about last time a little bit?
Yeah.
And then we'll explore the alignment with the project and even alluding to some of the stuff we just talked about like discomfort with the existing tech machine.
Mm-hmm.
Your exposure to the industry, and then how that could relate to SwiftScaling this beautiful thing. So that's kind of the arc we'll try to cover in this brief amount of time.
I love it.
Cool.
Well, we'll cover a lot of ground. That's perfect.
Oh, and then we are Canadians.
We are Canadians. That's very important to start with that.
Right? In America.
In America at this time.
They need us.
You're lucky to have us. You're lucky to have us. You should be so lucky. One of the things Scott knows that I do is comedy, and so I often call myself a snow Mexican. Be it just being a little bit irreverent, but I do. I'm so connected to this country, and I really do love like this place is my home, California, and I feel so grateful, to also feel Canadian and and American and California.
So were you working here before?
Yeah. So my story is a little bit like, I'll do a highly condensed version, but so I grew up in Canada, and I was like really creative as a kid. Then, I got really interested in international development. Like, I don't know if you kind of can relate, but in Canada, at least while I was growing up, I felt like if you wanted to see the world and go out and explore, you were going to get into international development. Like that was what you were going to do. And I was just always really drawn to understanding just the nature of equality and equity and privilege and why systems were the way that they were. And so, so I from a young age was like very curious. And so I studied international development at McGill. I thought I would go to law school. Both my parents were lawyers. They had met actually sort of law school. And then And then I ended up taking a detour, which was a wonderful detour. I went, did my master's at Oxford, was like still planning on going to law school. And I studied gender and human rights, spent some time in West Africa, in Sierra Leone. And I have so much respect for lawyers. I'm so grateful for lawyers. I did not want to be a lawyer, Scott. I was like,
it's where the liberal arts people go.
It's what you're supposed to do, right? And I was like,
or politics or whatever. And I was like, I can't do that.
That was how I felt. So I took the LSATs and I just kept applying to like one like tiny UVic and I kept getting waitlisted. And I'd be like, I didn't get into law school. And my parents would be like, you didn't even apply. Are you kidding me? So anyways, after a few years of that, it was clear I didn't want to do that. But this was like, I was applying for all these unpaid internships at Amnesty International. Wasn't getting any of them. And I spent time in Sierra Leone, and I ended up working in Singapore briefly. I was kind of working as a fundraiser for an NGO, and I loved Singapore, but it was so different from where I had been spending time in West Africa. And I was like, I want to go back to emerging markets and I want to do impact investment. That was like all the rage back in, I guess, what would have this been, like 2013, 2014. So yeah, almost over a decade ago. And yeah, I was sort of this doe-eyed, fresh, like out of grad school. And I ended up, through the grace of, whatever you want to say, God, the universe, I applied to this like internship that somehow I applied to the job, and I got this job at a company called Rocket Internet, a German e-commerce firm. Mm-hmm. And they hired me on, and I moved to Lagos, Nigeria. And I ended up building out this real estate platform across West and Central Africa. And it was an amazing experience. I arrived, I was like, I don't know, 24, 25. I had never worked in tech. I'd never run a team. And it was like trial by fire in this wild, amazing, crazy place.
What kind of real estate platform?
It was like a truly a Zillow model, like a classifieds, and I could go more into that, and we will certainly, as we hopefully continue to work together on the challenges and what I had to sort of learn, because it was, two-sided marketplace in a classifieds, like highly fragmented market. And Nigeria is a beautiful place. I love Lagos. I mean, it's such a
straight up business opportunity, but where economic functionality through, frictionless apps can actually make things more efficient than the legacy system that was captured by agencies and blah, blah, blah. So it does good, right? Like it does good in our world as like an economic intervention.
Yes.
Purely business, self-propagating and all that.
And what I love about like what Nigeria, and this sounds so ridiculous, like I'm this white Igbo, as the Nigerians would call me. I'm this white girl going, yeah, but what the Nigerians taught me. No, but what Nigeria did teach me is that like, I'll never forget, I went into this one real estate agent's office one time, and I'm like, what inspired you to get into real estate? I'm like just doing my like Canadian, whatever, North American thing. And he looks me dead straight in the eye and goes, what do you think? Money. Like he goes, the Nigerian flag is green and white, money. And I loved, there was no ridiculousness about it, but I don't think that's a bad thing. It's almost, and I'm not trying to valorize.
It's the same as selling sunset, right?
It's exactly.
Right,
it was so real. And the reality is there's nothing wrong with wanting to make a living for yourself and your family. And whether, you're living in, whether you are in a place where there's mass obvious poverty. I mean, in LA, there's tons of poverty, but I don't know. I think this whole like demonizing people wanting to make a living for themselves, and that's certainly not, but it's just, I don't know. I learned so much in Nigeria about so many things. And I definitely was like, business, of course, has a force for good, but beyond all just the, the noise around it, it's like the thing that it's how you feed your family and put a roof over your head and gets you out of bed. And ideally, if you could be of service, that's amazing. But like, yeah, so I'm so grateful for that experience. And so we built this real estate platform across West and Central Africa, and it ended up becoming sort of a vertical of this place called Jumia, which was the first, it's sort of the Amazon of Africa. That was the first international IPO of an African tech company on an international stock exchange, on the New York Stock Exchange. So that's really exciting. And again, the company's been through ups and downs, and but I just to been able to go through that,
exposed to M-Pesa while you were there, and also they've leapfrogged us in some ways.
Oh, definitely. I mean,
they can leapfrog the whole freaking centralized internet communications and electrification system. All the systems are like they can literally leap in so many ways. When I think of what we're doing, I'm like, our friend Mikey Zuckerberg is very active in a refugee camp in Uganda. Mm-hmm. They've got legs to be able to do like leapfrog there. The government's now approved that they can get refugee towards citizenship path. And he wants to activate that place as like tourist hub, transformation, new model village, everything. And I'm like, I think we're going to have core infrastructure for them as well as in Leimert Park or here in Topanga. It's the same kind of economic engine for local entrepreneurship is more like the playground. When you start to see it, friends who started something called Open Impact, Caitlin Archambault, building a full workflow for project management, disintermediate how projects get funded at the local level in the developing world. So funders have a dashboard and can invest in transparent, blockchain validated proof of work stuff on the ground. So it's like they're doing the geek part of how to start a project, and they still don't have the economic engine that can just light up like we're talking about. It's really, so it's interesting because you've seen business at that level and you realize it's still top down large infrastructure where it's the nonprofit world choosing the theory of how to do it, chickens and mosquito nets. And it's like, no. They can do massage. They can do 1,000 different restaurants. It just can leap in ways that if you really give the community the keys and don't tell them or prescribe that it's got to be the older woman in the Kiva circle. Awesome, but not it.
Well, and completely. I think totally. And I think the reality is when people have been doing this forever, local commerce is, like people surviving, people transacting. I mean, this has been happening forever. And so the tools, of course, are ideally how do you, people are trying to capture value in addition to providing it. But at the end of the day, local commerce has been existing, no doubt, since as soon as Neanderthals, as soon as those cavemen figured out, wait, you're able to do something and I can't do that. And what do we exchange here?
Cowrie shells and cacao beans. Yeah. Let's go.
So I just, yes. And so it's really interesting. I mean, what I got to experience there, and a very different place. I mean, Nigeria is about to overtake, I don't know what year it's going to be big. Lagos is going to overtake Manhattan. I mean, it's just the population growth is amazing. So you're talking about a very different scale versus like when I spent time in Sierra Leone, that was a lot more, sort of nonprofits at that time. And I haven't been back in years, but, much more centrally sort of organized nonprofits that, and we had talked about this, I saw a lot of really well-meaning folks, but money not necessarily getting deployed in the most efficient and effective ways, which again, I think is, certainly been on the minds of sort of the collective in the States this year. But all that to say, so Nigeria taught me so much. And I loved it. And I was all over West and Central Africa and I got to learn a lot. And that was sort of my first jump into tech. And so I just always had this dream of living in California. People always were like, are you from, when I left Canada, they were like, are you from California? I'm like, no, but I'm going to live there one day.
Me too, from a little kid.
Isn't that wild how sometimes I do wonder.
You just see it on TV and you just go like,
That place. Like that place.
I feel
that's where I'm from. That's where I'm supposed to go.
I can kind of express, and not that Canada is super provincial, but they are called provinces, and there is a bit of provinciality and conservative. Don't fuck with it too much because we freeze our asses and we'll all die if you're too wild. So not too many of you doing this.
Yes.
You need to come to the place that's like the freaking center of the Death Star of the Empire. In the media connection.
And we're the black, and if you're the black sheep, and again, I love Canada. I'm so proud to be Canadian. And lots of folks will talk about, I know, we were like in the, I guess I know, and I'm not normally as black. So I feel like clearly we were on the same wavelength. Well, and it's funny too how I do find, and people have talked about this, I lived in the UK as well for my master's. I love the Brits. Like I'm never one to offend. And it's different when you're a Commonwealth country. It's a little the tall poppy syndrome, right? Which they talk about in Australia. Like, you're not going to rock the boat. You're not, I've heard different folks talk about that fisherman thing, oh my God, the crab bucket. So like the American fishermen would always say to the Canadian fishermen, like, dude, why? Like, you don't even have to put the bucket on your bucket of crabs. Like, aren't they going to get out? And the Canadian guy goes, no. One of them tries to get out. The rest of them will just pull them back in. And so that idea of like, you're not going to leave. Like who do you think you are? Don't rock the boat. Like things are good. And again, I love so much about Canadian culture, but that was not me. I was like, oh no, I'm here to color outside the line. So that's what I'm here for. And I love it because California, and especially Topanga where we are, is like, filled with lots of free spirits and wild, crazy folks.
Yeah. And so how's it been? How long has it been since you've been in California?
Almost a decade, which is wild. So first I was in San Francisco. Right? First, which is interesting because I was almost LA. I had the first job offer I actually had was down here. But there was something that was keeping me in the Bay and I went with it and I'm grateful. I had an amazing time there and I got to work with some of the most talented intelligent folks in tech. So I worked at a couple of early stage startups, and then I made my way to Postmates in 2017. And again, could go into that experience more generally. I mean, it was wild and crazy. And
how many cities were they in when you?
Yeah. So at that point, they was like a lot of the major tier 1 cities. So about 27% of US household coverage. So like Los Angeles was the biggest market, in the likes of New York, Chicago, Boston, obviously San Francisco, Seattle. And it was really interesting because when I was there, the company was going through a big shift at the time. DoorDash, Uber Eats, Postmates, Uber Eats, of course, eventually ended up acquiring Postmates, but Uber Eats was just starting, and DoorDash and Postmates were sort of neck and neck, and could go more into that history at another point. But, we were first eyeing international expansion, and then DoorDash raised this monster round from SoftBank, $500 million. And so we had to batten down the hatches, basically figure out, hey, how are we going to expand? We did not have the capital at the time. The way that you would expand these on-demand companies is you would send like a little, launcher, and they would go and they would acquire all the Postmates or the couriers. They go, sell into local merchants or larger merchants, and then they would do demand generating events in the community. So that was just sort of standard for how you launched these businesses. And part of it was because Uber, again, different business model in the transportation space, needed that kind of decentralized leadership because there was obviously a lot of, municipal and other things they needed to deal with. So that was sort of the model for how, food companies like on-demand delivery was expanding. And we were like, we don't have the cash to do this. So but we're not going to survive. These, national quick service restaurants, QSRs are not going to continue to work with us unless we cover more households, other than just the 27% we were in. So, there was a very lean team of us.
And a huge challenge and a monster freaking Goliath coming in with SoftBank funding. And you're like, David.
Yeah, we were totally in that story, and we were this crazy motley crew. And I could talk more about it, and I often do.
We'll do that. We'll have the creativity, hacking the regulatory, which I guess they actually paved the way, thank God, right? So that your competitors actually paved the regulatory where they have to, by dint of, competitive markets and American attitude, say, yeah, competitors, of course, thanks for doing the regulatory, dudes, with your 500 million. Here we come, just doing the marketing. Right. And being the underdog and being the counterpoint and just like all that. But then you've got a heavy freaking fund, like under cost operations, right, to grab market share, which was the game in that. And so that's going to be a fascinating one time.
Well, totally. And it was super fun. And I will never, look, we had traditional VC money. I mean, we had Founders Fund and a lot of, Tiger invested us. And so I'm not, want to be clear. We weren't completely, we were the rogue, and it was fun to be an underdog. And it was such a fun, insane culture that all of us, I think, who went through it would say it, but it was incredibly fun. And I learned a lot. And I learned, that you gotta, when you're up against the wall with a certain amount of resources, you got to figure it out. And that was a wonderful experience, and I loved it. And so I was there, for basically 4 years through the acquisition with Uber that happened. It was announced in 2020 and then ended up, completing, I guess, early 2021. And I was briefly at Uber. I loved that team, but it wasn't at the time it was just too big for me, and it didn't make a ton of sense. And so I ended up, I was at Instacart for 2 years. And then I joined an early stage education technology robotics company, which was amazing and so much fun. And I'd never done anything quite that early. And basically we were just, wanting to get kids excited and inspired to solve humanity's greatest challenges using robotics and exposing them to STEAM. So STEM plus, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. And so it was amazing and so fun. And getting to work with an international team.
Who's that YouTuber who does this thing with Mr. Beast? They planted the 20 million trees together. Oh. Mark Rober.
Okay.
Do you know him?
I don't know him.
He would have been a natural. It's so funny because he sends little kits and was monthly and then quarterly video challenges with a kit that goes to the kids to play along at home.
So cool.
And do STEM as part of the game.
Well, and we love, again, the business model with that. We were not working so much with at-home robots. We were sort of doing after-school programming and really, and then,
there's a whole after-school thread that we're going to mine.
Totally, that we will mine at some point. So anyway, so that's sort of my professional.
Bookmarking these, and we're going to get the GPT, my GPT, not yours, to just map key conversation threads for us to explore together with like the screen up and researching and sharing stuff and tracking, because there's a couple of different threads beyond local, like the Locomore model of doing local marketplace activation that I want to also cover in the same model around education, around personal coaching, development, co-creation, It's like it's all this map of stuff that becomes like, how do you co-organize for these collaborative super communities around super solutions to start forming, like we're doing? How do we activate locally as a collaborative or cooperation? How do we replicate that? And why not replicate it just as a set of ideas, a framework that people seeing us do this here can say, oh, we could do the same thing for love, sex, and relationships, for friendship, for co-creation, for all sorts of fields that I've tracked as Bucky's super solutions or trim tabs, looking for those and going like, and I just love the repartee that we have and the exposure that you've had. So that multidimensionality, right? While you're doing this, we'll backtrack. How does like comedy, acting, your fascination across all these domains get nourished while you're doing that stuff?
It's a great question. And I think I wish I could say, oh, as I was, sort of building these tech companies, I was also exploring all these other interests. I was so in love with creativity as a kid. And then I just kind of left it. I was like, well, who gets to do that? I actually come from a family with, very talented creatives, including successful artists, believe it or not. But it was a little bit like, art is, you should only ever do art if there's nothing else that you could ever possibly do. And unfortunately, that was sort of the message. And, I get it, right? Like, it's not a bad thing. It's parents just want, their kids to be successful. One of my favorite comics, I think she's such an inspiration, Zarna Garg. I don't know if you know her. She's this amazing Indian woman that like lives in New York. And yeah, she's doing so well. She's been, touring with Tina Fey and Amy Poehler, but, she'll be the first to say like, she's now having this, I guess, second or third career as a comic, but she's like, I don't want my kids to be comics, like it's one of her bits, but like, she's leaning in, right? She's like, no, doctor, like, you know what? Like, don't follow your passion. And so I laugh, like, I understand why parents might say, hey, that's not the most viable career path in the world. And I'm really grateful, again, that I got to, jump in and build a career doing something that was not probably what I would have otherwise done. And
late stage, right? Like, I'm at 60 and I literally have been in this tension for the last 10 years, going between, oh, I need to leverage my social entrepreneurship, my community organizing, my shamanic role, and be an artist in this way, which is why Fourth Branch and what we're doing is actually going to be my keystone role within the year, is to raise enough funds that we have the people who want to play in the roles of expressing their mastery as COO, as whatever, you cherry picking who you think could do like growth hacking, not even you designing it, mentoring it, and then really just tracking in this culture side. Because the culture is what's really going to get most people in the door.
Completely.
Right. And that's where I want to. So I'm like literally in this emergent learning. When we did the Comedians Fix America, was me like first time. And then like, I'm not a moderator. I'm not going to, who our MC is? Our MC is Jay Light. That's our MC for that show model. But I want to do this other jammy thing that's dialectical. That's really my root, and where I went to school and how I like to talk with people and unfold ideas, this orientation, but how to be playful and fun with other people. So sandbox
100%.
for a bunch of really bright, clever people to do it in this way. A little bit more earnest, but like where Rogan's good, but doesn't have the orientation to be discerning about. So what are the practical best super solutions for that thing?
Right. Yeah.
Is it prioritized, or is it a lot of jackassery little fascinations?
Right.
And I'm just like, that's that thing that I hold that I'm very proud of, which is that orientation to like, let's keep it around the theme of what's highest leverage and most practical and most evidence-based. It's like, those are the core criteria. And then let's have fun as fuck imagining what that could be and how to realize it, and just be in the playground to give imaginary scope to the listeners for a different way of thinking. It's like a different source of news and truth and possibility. Yeah. So they're just like,
well, yes. And I think that what I love about that invitation is like nobody is just one thing. I mean, we all show up with so many different sides to our personality, so many different interests, passions, ideally skills and expertise. And so for me, giving myself permission, which, to come back to your question, has been sort of the journey of the last particular 5-6 years. And since I moved to LA, where I was like, oh, I was getting to play, I was getting to do acting again and starring in an indie movie, and then, doing comedy, getting into stand-up, doing, exactly music and doing music and writing music. And it was crazy. It was like, on this kind of personal development journey where things sort of exploded, but in a beautiful way, where things really opened up. And I was like, whoa, why is my definition of my life in this? Like, why can't I be, a tech executive who understands a lot of these things, who also, writes TV and writes music and loves doing comedy and performing comedy. And so, of course, at a certain point, I do really respect and believe in the idea of mastery. Like, the 10,000 hours, like you do have to focus and pick a lane. And I'm very much a deep believer in like, when you hit and when it's clear, you've got to put all your focus around it. And I also do love the idea, and I'm not so arrogant as to be like, oh, I'm a polymath by any means, but I do love this concept of like, what a true polymath is you have to understand, right? Like I think, Musk, who I definitely differ from politically, and I think he has a lot, there's no doubt that man is a polymath. And this idea of like understanding really the trunk and the branches. And when you can do that and you can understand that across industry, across discipline, that really opens up the opportunity for true like mastery and understanding, again, with humility across multiple different fields. And so I'm personally fascinated by, as I've been exploring entertainment, television, like, writing a pilot, just producing, starting to dip my toe in, being like, wow, there's so much that's transferable between, strategy and operations and fast moving tech companies and entertainment, right? And music and what is a transfer, comedy, community engagement, those kinds of things. So again, I have
I'm just going to guess, and personal development,
yes,
career development, learning how to have that flexibility and restore work-life balance, relationship stuff, all these things go under the freaking, you get chewed up in your first Saturn return cycle, as it were. Those first 30 years, whatever you want to call it, is like, I'm just going to fucking go for it, and kind of propelled by the conditioning of my parents' values and constraint of my culture. And then you get to like, oh, okay, did that, succeeded so now we're going from like legal aspirational, the child of creative freedom, legal aspirational, parental constraints and culture, just be safe, to international development, straying vastly, seeing people wildly express under much more duress in international conditions, which is like an interesting place to intuitively put yourself, to be like, they have more freedom, they have more community and family and friendship, and their systems suck. Okay, well, but some of them work. Okay, it just goes in, and then it's like, okay, do the thing. And then what did you do to reset? Were you pulling in coaching or anything, or peer groups, or medicine, or what were
it's a great question. I was on my own. Ever since I was young, and I don't want to, like, I had for different kinds of reasons that we won't go into. I used to disassociate sometimes when I was a kid, and I'd be like, who am I? What am I? I've always been a seeker. Like I was always like, that guy, the Buddha, what did he talk about? Was sort of baptized Catholic and interested in Christ, but I was always like truly a spiritual seeker. Did a yoga teacher training right after college. So was sort of on this like yogic path. I was just, I insatiably curious and insatiably curious to understand like humanity, the concept of identity and otherness and all of it. Like, I just wanted to understand, like, why am I here? Why am I who I am? Like, who am I and what am I? I literally used to say that. I remember I was 8 or 9 in the shower. I go, who am I? What am I? Who am I? And I'd like float outside my body and I'd go into the void, like the darkness and the void. No medicine. I was 8 or 9. And I was like, now I understand. I'm like, right, that was disassociation. But
it's also, like from like, Dolores Cannon, who tracks like transdimensional information from people in deep delta state hypnosis. For years, she just recorded their things, identified the themes. It wasn't even her channel. She was kind of getting a collective intelligence channel this way. And she's like, oh no, there's this whole new wave of young ones coming in, maybe from other dimensions or just waiting on the sidelines to just come in and be like, we know there's a better template. This thing is so screwed up. Okay, let's just all in.
Right.
And this, with that ability to go transcendent, is a lot. I had an imaginary friend when I was a kid until I was 5, but then it's shut down.
That's it. I believe so many kids are so connected. And look, I will never be so arrogant as to be like, this is how this whole thing works, this whole universe. And like, I'm a big believer. It's just the mystery. There's so much beautiful stuff that is known and unknown and we are connected to that we can't really fully comprehend. And I don't really care whether you call that, spirituality, agnostic, like whatever. It's just, they're all words to describe, for me, I call it the isness. And so I do believe every kid has access to this. I don't necessarily think it's the gifted special ones. I think every kid, especially that is nurtured to explore it, and keep connected, like that's part of the imagination and the creativity. And where we are in Topanga. I mean, I freaking love Topanga. Canyon kids are wonderful and feral in the best possible ways because they're still wild. Not all of it. I don't want to glamorize or romanticize it, but it's just really special to be around kids that are not, that are again, not that they're not using technology, but their lives are not about phones or devices or screens. They're really connected. And I want to be clear with parents all across the world are trying to do that. And it's freaking hard in this culture. And so again, to go back to your questions, I do love all these little fun things. So yes, I was always on this spiritual path. And then in my 20s, again, like I was always really deeply driven by, and it sounds sort of ridiculous, but I wanted to have impact on people. Like I did not make the decisions about making the most amount of money. I was never driven by that. Although once I got into those jobs, I was definitely like, you're going to pay me. I was an intense negotiator. Right. I was like, if you're making money, I'm participating, dude. So I have that fun. Like I'm the oldest child, bossy since the day I was born. I know Beyonce was trying to ban bossy. I kind of don't mind it. I'm like, you can call me whatever you want. I don't care. Just pay me. So I was like, I had that sort of that in me. So I was in this tech culture and I was checking off all these things on my list that I was successful. And again, I wasn't like the most senior person, but I was, big companies and these big jobs. And I had this gorgeous apartment overlooking the San Francisco Bay Bridge. And typically woke up one day and I was like, I am not happy. This is not my life. Like I hadn't achieved the 2.5 kids and the husband and the Tesla living in Marin, but like everything else, I was basically on track for this life. And I was like, this is not making me happy. And so partly though, because I was Canadian and I still needed to work for my visas and to live in the country, I then, I deepened into my spiritual journey. I would sit on the couch and listen to Eckhart Tolle lectures. And I always loved Ram Dass. Like I grew up, actually, my mom was a big Ram Dass fan. So I always was really connected to, just a secret, like I said. And then I did gratefully, when was this, 2019, I got the opportunity it's a longer story, but I had experience with medicine, like, psychedelic plant medicines. I
think the long and the short of it in a way is those practices get you to a more multidimensional and sensitive state of witnessing.
Yeah.
My shorthand for the whole thing, whether you do it with breath work or a whole yoga journey or a church community, when you have a safe place to really reflect on yourself in those points of transition, you start to then want to experiment. And it sounds like you're in the experiment where it's just like, okay, it's back to I'm creating my own Waldorf elementary school experience. And at a meta level, just to bring it back to context, with the displacement of jobs from AI, it's a whole bunch of people anxious about losing these very mechanical careers for what can now be automated.
Yes.
There will be robots soon. So what do we do with that freedom is where I see you as a really important case study in the team, like Free Dolphin Puppy discovers US and is now expressing it like literally triple threat stuff.
Well,
right. And going for it with fearlessly going like, I could just do it for the fun of it. And I want to try all these to understand who I am. Right. Who am I is the question of this generation, I think. And who are we collectively as this unknown socially, economically? What is this village? And what are the individuals in this village when all this disruption is going to happen this time more profoundly than any before?
And I want to be clear too, because again, like this, I can tell my story in a way that's like, I'm Midas and everything I've ever touched has turned to gold. And also, deep, dark crevices, nights of the soul. And it's difficult too, as much as I'm so grateful for, everything that's existed outside of the dominant culture, in wellness and spirituality. There's also a lot of snake oil out there. There's a lot of snake oil. There's a lot of snake oil salesmen. And when we're in these culture, when we're removed from community and we're removed from intergenerational friendships, from elders, from any kind of structure that is happening, sort of in this postmodern, late capitalist, whatever words you want to throw on it, like it is concerning. And so that's concerning in and of itself. Plus now you throw in the acceleration of, what is an absolute colossal shift in economics, in intelligence, in the way that we interact and communicate. And again, none of us know what's happening. I read this wonderful book last year called The Coming Wave. And I think what's so interesting when it comes to AI is that we don't obviously understand how we're going to be interacting with these technologies. There's a lot of people that are, doing a lot of research that are dedicating their lives to this. And for me, most fundamentally, if we do not know who we are as individuals and who we are in relation to others, whether that's families, communities, like neighborhoods, we screwed. And I'm fundamentally an optimist. I believe in the human, like the power of the human spirit. I believe in the beauty of the human heart. And also, we effed. Like if we are expected to figure this out in isolation by ourselves, not going to go well. Like
already not going
it's
well.
not going well. And
the Bobo algorithms got us here. The Bobo algorithms. Now it's like meta, super, ultra personalized, manipulative. You pour your soul into GPT, you pour your soul into Claude, you poured your soul into Google for years now, Amazon. All of them have, the banks have this data, and they're prone to use it for financial gain, because the incentives for their executives are only on a financial pole. And that whole system, I was just mapping it this morning, it's literally global GDP is 170 trillion. All of it oriented towards just a fiscal score. Like, did you get more faster? That's it. And adding nuance to it, curiously, many people wish for it at the meta level, the meta systems thinker and the meta crisis people, but it's really doing it locally in a way that can be replicable, right? And then to make that replicability systematic, process-wise adaptable is really why you're sitting in this seat, with an understanding in this other dimension of, we got to leave a lot of room for people to experiment and map their adventure themselves. So it's going to start with like put up your economic profile. What's your main offer? What's the one you're trying to nurture next, or the 2 or 3? What are your evocations? How do we nourish that for you? And how do we help each other nourish it? The key proposition at the beginning is, if we can just peel some of the data, maybe all of it, some of the intelligence, some of the economic activity back to local, we literally take out of our pockets the secret stuff that no one can see and turn it into local wealth, like as if out of nothing, conjuring out of thin air.
And the beautiful thing is, I love that. And it's not that it's out of nothing. These already are existing, and in communities that are actually strong, and in potentially, because they have to be resilient, right? Topanga, because of the nature of our nature, because of the natural forces, when you have to interact with your neighbors, when this local commerce is already exists. So to me, if there's an opportunity to create, to amplify, and ultimately create more value, and to your point, put it back into the hands of the folks that are actually using it, that gets really interesting and very exciting. And I do think, like for me at a personal meta level, right? I don't necessarily think these tech companies are inherently evil. And I don't believe anybody that works at them are inherently evil. I haven't worked at, one that size. I've worked at large tech companies. At the end of the day, most people just want to feed their family, right? It's the structure of the businesses that's what your responsibility is. You're responsible to the board, you're responsible to the investors, to the shareholders, again, depending on the structure of the actual company. And so I do think, again, it's not that there's this these evil executives that are trying to mine people for data. It's just, that's the way that they're able to create the value.
VC backed, saying we want as much money as soon as possible because it's high risk, because 99 out of 100
and that's just the structure of the industry. And it's worked for a long time, because a lot of companies would never have succeeded without venture capital as an industry.
It got us to here. And now the methodologies, like EOS, Entrepreneur Operating System, as a methodology now implemented by 100 companies, YC, where you train people to basically replace university education on the fly, even within the organization. There's learning systems within the startups that supersede what you'll learn outside the startups at any campus, right? So it's all these systems have grown in that framework, but still with primarily fiscal rewards and incentives. So where we have the chance, and this is really what it's about, we're society building in a way, with this company and community as the lab to stitch together. And this is what I was tracking this morning. It's like, yes, it is going to be more challenging to bring a whole bunch of proven to be effective stuff, but bring it together in a new synergy that's never been brought together before, and to aim to scale in the way that the unicorns do, all at the same time, is like a kind of meta society growth building challenge that's just like, and I love it because it's like,
I know you love that. You're like, ooh, because I love it.
Let's see if all these super tools of decentralization and organizing for fast scaling can work in a really, and so recently been really mapping cosmological science and physics and stuff, and how one guy in a book who put it together about how finely tuned the universe is often the framing of the anthropic principle. But it's like you can put the rules for the game design, for the system design for this entire universe and life on Earth on a single page. These are the fundamental principles, and not even like smaller than 10-point font, like literally on one page. So if a game designer could have come up with that, with the incentives naturally built in for how things work and are rewarded in the thing, and then just say, start. And that's this world, literally. So when I think about that template, I'm like, biomimetics, that's the biomimetic core for the DNA of what I want to do, where what we do in Topanga is a lab to create the conditions that adaptability, replicability, and even the adaptation, fine-tuning of the incentives are such that someone can say from another village somewhere, I want to start, and we say, go for it.
Yeah.
And that's it. And then the game begins.
Yeah.
Right. And neighborhood by neighborhood, and then virtual community by virtual community. It's like, that's where, like, so there's a systems level thinking, which what I appreciate about you so much is the breadth, the level, the scope of it, that I can invite you and you can easily say, I like the challenge to design something that will work as well here as in the refugee camp in Uganda.
Well, I love philosophy, and I love thinking about large systems. And then I feel very grateful because the way that I've, again, worked with people way smarter than me in terms of like the ethos and the practice really about also building businesses is like, it's human-centered, it's individual-centered. So for me, it's not about creating society. For me, it's going like, hey, who's that individual that's already in a community? And maybe that's a functional one, and maybe it's not actually. But what I think is so amazing about, again, this one is sort of our like testing ground, is there is a community with lots of very unique, crazy, wonderful black sheep, but like myself included. But ultimately it's like, how do we solve for, if you can make somebody's life easier, if you can make somebody's life more beautiful, if you can connect somebody to somebody that's there, if you can ultimately be a tool, like that's to me what technology is and supposed to be, then you're creating value, that of course it's other people are going to want to take. So anyways, there's tops down and sort of bottoms up. This is like a sort of reductive way of thinking about it. But I love thinking about that sort of bottoms up of like, how is this individual, user, this individual community member, this individual human experiencing this in their lives, and ultimately how can we create and produce and add value. And this is just a personal thing, but to me, I think like the ultimate, I don't want to say defense, the ultimate moat, yeah, exactly, around exploitation, around of any kind, is like self-knowledge, and not being hokey, but self-love, right? Like self-respect, self-understanding, like that connection with yourself. That's the best antidote against any kind of, whatever mass data mining agenda, et cetera, et cetera. Like if you know yourself, then you can't be manipulated. It's very difficult to manipulate somebody who truly knows themselves and who can be honest with themselves about like, these are my strengths. These are some things I really got to work on. Like these are my patterns. These are my hopes, my dreams, my whatever, my things. And so I think somebody that knows themselves, it's a lot harder to sell them shit that they don't need. It's a lot harder to exploit them and to manipulate them. And I think it's, to me, the best, moat against what is a potential trajectory for, this planet and human society, which it could go dark pretty quick.
Yeah, and I think every one of those phrases that you said, you could put the we of community in place of I.
Definitely.
And the more we know ourselves and what we're in consensus on, and Topanga, there might be very few principled things, right? But we know we don't want, and it's generally the majority here, and I think everyone else will get with it, we don't want to become a formal city that's institutionalized. We want to do it in a less formal way that's got more complexity and mapping of the communities. But when we come to consensus on, for instance, we don't want plastic or cement to do weed suppression. We'd rather take care of the weeds in a more biologically sensitive way along our road. And if Caltrans doesn't get that, it's a huge unresponsive system, we have a responsibility to make that organization, and our county supervisor who has a voice there, become responsible to us. That responsibility generates responsiveness and responsibility in the institutions. We're really doing that game too. And to be like locally, that we're more responsive to the creekers who don't really have good home situations, or the individuals who want better economics, the local businesses with the road closure, or our collective marketing, or activating the school and the LAUSD, the super institution that comes and goes with making the school better based on how active the parents are, to basically have to scream against this huge monolith. And so can we be part of a movement in Los Angeles, in the state, to actually generate more responsive systems where responsibility starts in the individual and in the neighborhood? That really is the theory of change in so many ways. And it still gets hyper practical. The cool thing about the last week has been Christina's, beautiful critical reflection, going like, too complicated, very grandiose, lots of docs. She read through it and was so incisive. I could say, so it sounds like the Ikigai thing where we're doing this mapping of people's whole selves, too premature. And she basically said, you've got some key assumptions that really put some questions in my head. And I'm like, okay, name them. She's like, well, I don't think you can assume that anyone or a large number of people want to do this whole life development thing. No. And I'm like, but I do know that the people who are already selling stuff and offering stuff want that offer to be seen. Yes. And she was like, 100%.
Local commerce. That is, again, that's how people feed their families, put roofs over their head, like how they're independent, how they have a thing to get up in the morning. Local commerce fundamentally, I think, will exist. I hope there's not some mass apocalypse, but if there's any humans left, guess what they're going to be doing? They're going to be transacting, because it's community, it's connection. And so I agree with you. And I think, again, not that people don't want to grow and change and shift. And, we can have all of these ultimate motives for people, but at the same time, everyone experiences, that journey so differently. And so I'm really glad that you guys were able to get to land at that place.
Yeah. And so what it starts to look like now, where I think, I'm really responding to the, my desire to get things going was like, we're going to do a December 22nd meeting, and who shows up, shows up. Oh, good. It's the core team developing the product. It's kind of our quanta of how people will engage through, this in what we're calling now the Eden Personal Intelligence Companion, EPIC. So it's an EPIC agent, right? It's an EPIC assistant. It's the EPIC. And we might call it Eden, but I think Eden's kind of too hokey. So we call it EPIC or call it Eden, but that's right. What you're calling up.
I love it.
Something EPIC, right? And that's Elliot. And then Deborah developing the outreach to leaders in the community. Mm-hmm. So what we're doing with the high touch gatherings is to get the leaders to experience it, to give them a lot of attention, because they're the custodians of these groups of people that when, for instance, I will very comfortably, because I'm, creating this thing, put the EPIC agent into my groups, people will be like, whoa, what the fuck are you putting an AI in? And I'm like, come to an event if you're concerned. I can create a mirror group that just doesn't even have it in there, but I can also show you reliably with the most great security internet people ever that it's only going to monitor the statements and the postings that people want to share from the people whose phone numbers have signed up for it. Everyone else is invisible to the thing. I don't really believe that. Okay, we'll do a mirror group, right? To build safety and trust in the thing. Or people are like, I'm in for the experiment. Let's go for it. And we have an aggregate number and a couple of people who opt out. And I'm like, that's fine. We'll do another mirror group for you guys and just mirror the listings over there. So we can do it in a way where we're doing intimate enrollment and explaining to the leaders. And it can be WhatsApp leaders and Telegram leaders as much as the Chamber of Commerce or the Renegade Chamber that's called Visit Topanga Group. Or it can be like any one of the local Topanga Community Emergency Preparedness, TSEP. Mm-hmm. Or it can be Dennis Hannigan, who runs the 10,000 plus member Facebook group. Not that we're going to be able to post the thing in there, but to introduce this with enthusiasm, because it's like, oh, got it, right? So it's that high touch to enroll our leaders, mm-hmm. so that there's opt-in, and eventually also those 5.5 billion WhatsApp and Telegram people in 1.5 billion groups, that this propagates and can clean up the noise from that. It just goes very quickly. And then people are like, oh, I can apply this locally like they did in Topanga and Highland Park, and right? So those are the two primary. And then the third is the local marketing. And someone posted to Penguins recently, I just lost a gig, 10 years email marketing. So I'm like, you know what, maybe Days, you're our person to come in and just project manage the local outreach to the local solopreneurs, the visible and invisible. And so very quickly, we can take what are 4 different directories with about 300 scattered offerings in them and go quickly to a 500,000 person directory that's just the best directory and most comprehensive that Topanga's ever had. That's a value. And then grow from there, right? Yes. Those who want entrepreneurial support development, personal development, there's tons of couches in town. Here's our lean version of how to get enrolled. Figure out who your program is, whether it's Lacey Phillips, who lives in the canyon, or it's Carlo doing the Workouts 100 thing, or it's you, or it's Savada who's got his own program. So all those become possible follow-ons in addition to the myriad impacts. And then we're explaining, you get your own data vault. The community has its own intelligence. It's not going to be exposed to the big companies. Here's why. Listen to the security genius, crypto blockchain AI people to say, oh no, this is a completely different model. You're in a separate universe. It's your communities, it's yours. Those things become propositions and then we get the chance. So it's dialing the storytelling around it that's scalable. And then more than anything, looking at what these folks are doing, being like consigliere eyes on it to like, how about this? We need these analytics about this. Elliot, can you right? And that how do we do this in an anonymized way that also gets us as developers and communities that need that intelligence to make something that works better, right? So it's like product market fit dynamically, ongoingly, and product systemization. And so where we've talked about are you actually implementing that now? We don't have the budget for it, but we do have the budget for you to say, if you were going to build the scaling system, here's what you need as resources to build out that scaling system, Scott and team. And then with your background, that's enough that we ballparked it, that a PRI funder could say, wow, you guys have a great team. You really thought this through. What do you need to take the next step? $1 million so everyone feels safe. And the confirmation that we hit our marks. We've got all the funding we need to go full freaking fire hose on this thing. No limits. And I think we'll get those people in, but that's the challenge of Q1, Q2 is to, as quickly as possible, get to a cogent, distilled, high level with some decent backup, and that the who knows what the fuck to do on the rest of it. So, and then they see in a 5-page document, and a couple of pages of team and speculative kind of people who be in there. That's enough for the pilot funders to make it robust and systematized and marketed well and be ready for scaled marketing, scaled systematization, and scaled implementation that just is its own propagating game design that can really flow.
Well, and ideally you take the early signals, right, from users about how, that, all of that feedback, for example, about how they're using it, who's engaging, how many folks are signing up for the directory, those kinds of things. And being able to say, okay, these are the early signals of how folks want to use this and how they want to build it, and how we should build it.
And what they want next.
Exactly.
Right. So it really is a democratic organization. We will exit to community in the future. That's down the road. I was just sharing with Lena earlier today, but the beginning, it begins, with a small team, concentrated ownership, and a veto-like control, because I've thought about this for 30 years. It takes a while for people to migrate into it. The temptation for many people on past teams has been just stay small and focus just small. I'm like, there's a meta crisis. The goal is here. There's a reason why I've taken 30 years in the last 9 years to distill this. It takes time, and it will take proof of and evidence of an implementation to then get that interest, understanding, even within the team, to then start to release stakeholder governance to people as bona fide participants, taking responsibility and being informed of for the bigger picture and the local, I'm voting in that context for how this thing is governed. But at the first, every action is a vote. Right? That we're just listening to people tacitly. We're a responsive organization. And that's what's, and it's a principle that's already been in tech forever, right? Product market fit and so on, but now dynamically teal, enterprise operating system, self-governed organization, these methodologies progressively implied with increasing nuance and capacity as we build the culture and capacity in the organization itself. So it's like it's having fun while we're doing it. It's having meals, break time, distillation time, all of it as soon as we can get the resources. So, hey, investors, it's really important that we get this nourished so it doesn't fail in any way because it's a thoroughly nourished organization doing it well.
I love that. I'm curious too, do you have, are there other, do you have examples of stuff that you've come across where you're like, oh, these are organizations that are, building in this way, that are like hitting, like other comps, I guess.
Yeah. Well, the basic one is the Google council-based methodology and Snap. So what's his name from Snap? Evan went to, I think it's the founder CEO. He went to Crossroads and brought in the Way of Council from Ojai as a methodology for all the kids to learn. He brought it in as a core methodology for all new employees. Google has its version of it where they learned statistically the teams that created the safe space for introverts to express benefited from their intelligence too, and not just the narcissistic extroverts. So not that they're all narcissistic, but A-types can go there and dominate daddy issues and whatever mommy issues. We're just like, I need the mic. So all those dynamics, that's the core. Right, because that culture and methodology of passing the mic, make sure has everyone heard? Okay, let's take time. Yeah. We'll come back tomorrow and do it again. Or you can send it asynchronously. Don't worry about it. Anonymize it. Use a fucking avatar. Whatever. Right. But we want everyone's input. That's key. Then the synergy process is around where so entrepreneurial operating system is now 10,000 companies thriving with it, where everyone who has a responsibility is treated and devises their own goals, their KPIs, in complement with the related teams to set up their own entrepreneurial game within the company. It's not, now it's very different than a company. It's like you're really operating your own entrepreneurial collaborative in every zone, and the methodology is through the L10 meeting, which is the standard thing, which also tracks issues for why things aren't getting accomplished, where you get rewards for your KPIs being hit and all that stuff. So that's that methodology, which is way better from everything that I've heard from holacracy and sociocracy, these kind of idealized versions that haven't been implemented well. EOS is thriving wherever it happens, and people literally saying the meetings are an hour to an hour and a half. They're fucking awesome. I take care of my own business. I love this. It's like that. So those are two prime examples. And then within it is sane use of blockchain just for our core data to be ultra secure. Why? Because Varus has figured out digital ID that can't be hacked, it's recoverable, and gives you a simple name. I'm Scott at Eden. I'm Scott Weinberg at Eden/Topanga. Done. And we can own our own chain at a zero level chain. This is powerful stuff where you're not on Ethereum. You're in this other platform for your core data and for community data. So those are working, which is awesome. And then this companion intelligence is kind of the most cutting edge, but they're launching it freaking, what's it called? The big tech fair in Vegas.
At Money 2020?
No.
CES.
At CES in January.
Yes.
Full mega launch with tons of money behind it. And so the community owned and personally owned intelligence and data, these guys have been at it for 10 years. And it's just I wouldn't say it's guaranteed to be bulletproof yet, but it's pretty freaking good. So those elements are the building blocks. And that's where they haven't been stitched together. Adding, even when it comes to the governance, and we don't need to do this yet, a random lottery of stakeholders joins the advisory council to make sure that this thing is doing important decisions that reflect the stakeholders in the town, neighborhood, for America, how this thing operates in California, and then for the whole system.
Yeah.
So it's just the best of participatory democracy and democratic governance, woven with best entrepreneurial executive management, with the best teal systems. All those are they're all proven.
Yes.
They just haven't been synthesized yet.
Excuse me, I'm about to sneeze because I have a question.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I was curious. So again, in your vision, and I know because I love the way that your brain is okay, it's so high level and it's putting all these things together. when you think about the initial and like, I would say beachhead, right? So the fundamental thing that is the, primary, like this is the primary use case at the beginning. Is it more local entrepreneurship or is it more civic engagement and
Local entrepreneurship.
Local entrepreneurship.
Yeah, because that creates the ground. The way I explain it to my democracy people is like, I know you want to have participatory democracy. I do too. I know that we want to have crisis readiness after the fire. But as soon as the fire is gone, no one's there. When you're screaming about the schools, you're screaming into the void against Coca-Cola, and everyone's screaming to everyone all at once about everything. All the coaches saying, you're my client. That's manipulative and inaccurate. Not everyone is everyone's fucking client, but anyone who walks in the door now because I have a slot to fill is mine, and I will shape myself and mold you into being my coaching client.
Yeah.
It's this. And that energy is because there's desperation in the market when there's enough clients and there's enough providers for everyone to be nourished. In fact, we're probably undersupplied on providers for almost every category right now. Mm-hmm. That's literally the level that we're at.
And I get
so, answering the question is like, if we get everyone in the house for day to day and we improve the function of community intelligence and personal get to know intelligence, and gathering my data, this feels different, and it's actually doing shit for me. People will naturally say, I'm really frustrated with the school. I want to do something about the school. Oh, can I use this to connect with other people who care about the school? And then you get your 1990 on education the way you couldn't before.
Right.
And that's, I've got another 7 minutes.
Okay, perfect.
We're good.
I was going to
bio break too.
Okay. Let's do it.
I'll be right back.
Okay, perfect.
I know it's weird on the Zoom thing.
No, we're good. Yeah. You'll edit this part out. Oh, Charlie, you're fine.
What's your pup's name again?
Charlie. Charlie Brown.
Does he need water? She needs water?
If there is any that you don't mind, thank you so much. She'll probably take some. You say, thanks, Uncle Scott. Thank you.
That was the thank you right there.
Yeah, exactly. She went, please, and thank you. Thank you so much.
The high level is what I wanted to also get to. And keep that in view because I think for your participation in this, it's really important.
Oh, I get it. That I always know what we're building. And you and I are the most aligned on. I would love for folks to own it. Like I do not use ChatGPT or Gemini regularly. I use it to ask questions. I don't use it as a therapist. I don't use it to tell them. I don't feed it my data. I'm not interested. Not that I don't trust, but I'm well aware it's all anonymized and I don't want to be retargeted based upon the information that I'm giving these platforms. And I know that's bound to happen because that's the model. They can't get folks to sign up for subscriptions. So how are they going to monetize? Through advertising and selling me shit that I don't want, I don't need, and quite frankly, the planet doesn't need in the landfill. And again, I'm not anti-commerce or anti-consumerism entirely, but I am anti being.
We got to redirect the show.
Yeah, that's how I believe. And
so then, the real thing is, so we have a team that will do local. We're going to be advising and monitoring and learning and systematizing. But the local team is really like a tight local thing where we're just racing to get to 1,000.
100%. That's
offers or more as soon as possible.
And that's ultimately, that's funny so this actually does circle back to what I was talking about from Nigeria, which was we had to there is no marketplace. So the thing with a classifieds model is you have to build supply and demand and tandem. You start with supply. I think we once talked about that. You have to build it very quickly and then you have to fast follow with demand. Otherwise the supply just goes, well, what WTF, mate? Like, why am I sitting around on this platform? I don't want to be. And that applies to any two-sided marketplace. 3 and obviously 4-sided marketplace is challenging in terms of timing, and you could get into that depending on the business model. But so with the two-sided marketplace like this, I think the whole point is that you have to, first generate the supply, and you have to, again, start with 100, 500, 1,000 listings. And so that's what we were very much doing in Nigeria. Like, you know, and you have to, again, what the listings are and the nature of the way that the supply engages with you. You know, what that looks like for us is, okay, what's the offering? What's the rate? What's the location? And what's the availability? That's off the top of my head, right? Like, I'm sure there's more things or more factors that we could talk about.
Are you available or not?
Right.
The calendaring
Exactly.
becomes a thing that gets into it, but you can do that offline with potential clients. It's going to be a little bit frictiony at first, but better than the
But I do think we have to absolutely, with an MVP, like minimum viable product, understand, like, okay, what are the fundamental things that we need to understand from local entrepreneurs who are generating our supply so that the demand can connect with them. And if it's ultimately just quick, if it's just directory, I love it. Low overhead, like low, you just
Simple.
like simple. It's all about simplifying and lean. And I'm all about that. And I actually am personally very excited that this is where you landed on, because we have spoken about this, like in particularly Tahoe, right? Where I spend a lot of time and I've got a cabin. I'm like, shit, I need a plumber. I need an electrician. I need a good contractor. Like, I wish that we had the WhatsApp group there. And I know so many people, if they knew how the Topangans Live and Locals functioned, they would of course wish for it in their tiny little neighborhood. And so I'm very excited that we're starting
resort
here.
towns, just imagine you get there and it's like everyone goes to the resort corporate stuff because the home-based businesses can't be seen. And you can have a dinner of 10, 20 people in your living room and be visiting there as a ski bum, or be a resident there and be like, my side gig, I'm cranking during the ski season.
Yes.
And it's not just the overcrowded restaurant that can't serve that many people anyway. It's Saturday night in a bunch of places. It's so many things that come alive through this. The thing that I've got recently too is like where, you know, and I talked to Jeff Chen, who's done radical science, and was giving him some feedback and introducing him to the PRI context for what he's doing, which is citizen science for natural and food-based wellness stuff. Mm-hmm. It's badass, right? And he's finally got the right client and he's got some lift. And so I want to introduce him to Lucy and a bunch of people in that world. And I got to ask him, I was like, so this is what I'm doing. He's like, I know 4 people who tried to do single themed platforms, wellness, and they've all collapsed because there's not enough there, and you can't reach the market for saturation because it's all of LA. Where we focus on local, our challenge then becomes, what's the stuff is not just 3 themes. It's, hey, Elliot, can you take the top 250 categories and job types, even if it's only once a year, don't fucking worry about it, and just try to develop rudimentary intelligence on how to get those listings relevantly posted and searchable, because then the market comes in and they find that stuff. And then 2 pieces that we've added yesterday that really came through is an offers fair, so that people can show up and go at my house, right? Come and Saturday meet a bunch of people doing weirdo offers you never knew were in your backyard. Oh, I can do this too. Oh, you're here. That happens in person. Oh, I want to sign up now. I got it. Oh, and we have a little workshop inside on how to do your profile, and with facilitation, people like learn about the whole data thing, and they're like, oh, I'm really getting excited about this, right? All that can happen, and pair that with a list that we actually put up in the coffee shops and stuff saying, yeah, you can still do the flyers, but all of these are here, and they'll get just by seeing that list of the categories. Oh, got it. Yeah. Those 2 things can be replicated as a very simple marketing strategy, in addition to having ambassador enrollers within each community reaching out and explaining, hey, WhatsApp group, it's more than Topanguans now. You can actually put up your offer, your side gig. You can start to experiment.
I definitely, and I think there's a ton of in-app marketing, in-app communication that you can do that's digital and online, where you're explaining things to folks. Again, quick 30-second video, like you said, about if there is concern and pushback about, you know, the AI, like what exactly was happening with the data, those kinds of things. I do think that I think then offline, the in-person is so necessary to understand, because you have these hypotheses. So you need to actually understand, like, okay, what is the feedback that people are getting to you? And that's where you get the very important user qualitative feedback, and also understanding how people are interacting with it digitally, because people will often say, you know, things, but they won't necessarily interact with it. Whereas if you are solving a problem for someone, they are going to likely engage with your solution. And so it's all about, okay, are you really solving a problem? And that to me is where you get, again, like in theory, what capitalism was supposed to be, which was you solve a problem and you get paid for it. You make someone's life easy. Like in theory, yes, the market actually works. The market gives you feedback. And that's why, again, we're coming full circle for me. That's why I ended up being like, I don't want to build my life in international development and nonprofit, because I felt like there weren't enough market signals. There weren't enough, like, is this really helping people? Is this working? Is this changing people's lives? Whereas if you're running a business and it is not solving the problem that it is not solving a problem for users, you're not going to have a business for very long, you know?
And we're literally a feedback machine.
Right.
Which is like, so for the PRI guys, as for the organization and enterprise, it's kind of rock star, because you're getting high resolution individual data and feedback, community level data and feedback, interaction between and getting repeat patronage, develop some good hacks on how to do that. Or it's just like, you get points in the local spending and get credits like you do at Endless Color. I got $8 to apply to my thing after 10 purchases. I got $8 to spend on my very expensive
You're rich, Scott.
bison burger. And I was like, oh, awesome.
You spent it on a bison burger. So Japan guys love it.
It's so delicious. And it was just like, we can just do a point system that will give us evidence of repeat patronage. And we can do the same thing where I'm an offer or a community leader. Got this one yesterday. We don't need to replace Linktree. We're the top thing that people, influencers with audiences in Instagram and in TikTok,
we're the star on the tree.
LinkedIn. We're the star on the tree.
We're the angel, or the, I don't know the Jewish thing, but so you can do, I'll give you the wasp.
We are the shamas, which is the lead candle.
Look at our.
They like the other candles.
I love it. Obviously, we're interfaith team. We're community. It's just perfect. That's it. We're that. We need a Kwanzaa metaphor. I'm like, okay, give me all of it, all of the religions, all of it all. But that's it. Love this for us. Love this. Yeah, no, I'm super excited. And like I said, I think ultimately, like if you're solving problems for humans, and those humans are part of a community, and you're solving problems without those humans in community with one another, that's, to me, that's like the gold star. And then of course doing it in a way where you're saying, hey, we actually, we don't want to mine. We want to do this. Don't be evil.
We literally are setting it up where we can't mine the data. It's yours, and you choose what to create for your profiles, what's publicly exposed as your signed shingle, and what's just used for filtering to say, keep the noise out.
And this was the biggest thing. And I was bummed to miss yesterday because I had pre-booked a thing. So for anyone, it's just the team probably that's going to watch this, unless we suddenly go viral.
Who has the
our
time?
Shining personalities. Yeah, no, we got to cut out your bathroom break. But I was going to say, I think to me, the biggest question there, and I know we're wrapping now. Which
I'm going to just let Wiz knew I'm coming soon. He's going to ask. It's okay. We'll go.
Okay. I was just going to say, I want to understand, and I guess this would be specifically with Elliot, how we can, and again, it's not mining the data, how we can get data analytics at the anonymous level to understand how folks are using and interacting with the app, because that would be, to me, the way that we build it so that we have access to understanding like average session time, on an individual, like anonymized and then aggregate level, so that we can ultimately feed that back in. And I honestly think, like, again, if somebody cares enough to like click on a 30-second data, thing, you can actually explain this to people, not in a super complicated way, which is like, we will never sell your data. We will never sell it to advertisers. We have no personal information about you. We just use it. We use all of the, sessions to make it better. And I think people, and you can opt in or out or whatever that is. But I do think making sure that we have that at the infrastructure level, that is imperative for us to be able to scale it. Oh my God, I love that for me. And I'm drinking from the narwhal, she's the unicorn of the sea.
Yes. And so very seriously to the point that you just made, there's this responsiveness that we're capable of, but key, and this is where there is an opportunity for like some of your time to go together. So I've been asking this question, how do we create, and Benjamin, turns out that one of his consulting gigs is working with OpenAI as a creative director for doing videos. So we have access to super tools we want to, which is cool. And it's to create the script and just the storytelling that makes it fun and playful for different voices to see what works for them to get with this on their terms. Mm-hmm. And that's like a plate of jams on how we do
So
the
cool.
freaking storytelling
Yeah.
as like funny explainer videos that could be like Saturday Night Live shorts. It's just like anything goes because it's so important to be relatable and get across these key beats. And then if you want to look in the footnotes, there's links to this vetting that will invite from white hat hackers / security wizards to say, no, these guys are working gold class. Because that's where that combination of like people will mostly. So what do you think, my geek friend? Geek friend is going to go to their geek super influencer, and geek super influencer is there. Wozniak's going, this is the shit. That trust leap that happens that way is like key.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. I love it. Super pumped. I'm so glad that we did this.
I know. I'm glad we did it. Good end of the year.
Really
Good
great end of
Christmas
the year.
magic. Goodbye, people.
100%. Bye. Definitely send me the. I'm gonna use really, really quick.
Yeah, please do. No problem.